I'd like to begin with a question that sounds very simple, but perhaps it isn't. Who are you? Who are you? It's such an ordinary question, we hardly stop to think about it. We answer with our name, our occupation, perhaps where we come from, whether we're married, retired, a parent, a student, a Buddhist, a doctor, an engineer. We become very good at describing ourselves. But have you ever noticed how many of those descriptions can change? Jobs change, relationships change, our health changes, our appearance changes, our abilities change, even our opinions about ourselves change. Yet through all of those changes, we still somehow feel this is me. So now, I'd like us to explore one of Buddha's most profound teachings, but in a very ordinary and practical way. Not as a piece of philosophy, not as something to believe, but as something we can quietly observe in our own experience. Because much of our distress, much of our stress doesn't come from life itself. It comes from trying to defend an image of who we think we are, or who we think we ought to be. We compare ourselves. We worry about our reputation. We become attached to our success, fearful of failure, anxious about getting older, and concerned about how others see us. Very often, we're not simply carrying the burdens of life. We're carrying the burden of maintaining a story about ourselves. The Buddha gently invites us to ask, is that story really who I am? Today, we'll look at that question through everyday experiences. A few hopefully amusing stories and some reflections that may feel surprisingly familiar. This isn't about trying to get rid of your personality or becoming someone different. It's about discovering that perhaps we are much freer than we imagine. When we stop clinging so tightly to our labels, our achievements, our disappointments, and even our opinions about ourselves, something else begins to emerge, something quieter, something lighter, something that doesn't need to prove itself. So rather than trying to answer the question, who am I? Perhaps today we can simply become curious about how the mind keeps creating that answer. And with that spirit of curiosity, let's begin. If you're all ready. So talk 16. Doctor Who, Doctor No. Ni hao. Lie. At the dinner table, conversation drifts effortlessly into subtle comparing. Promotions mentioned casually, travel stories calibrated carefully. Renovations described in just enough detail. Nobody announces the competition, but everybody senses it. Comparison hums quietly beneath the politeness. Identity begins forming in relations. I am more successful than him. I am less established than her. It's rarely nasty. It's not nasty and malicious. It's almost automatic. We measure to orient ourselves. But when identity relies on positioning within a group, stability becomes fragile. The group shifts and the metrics change. Someone younger arrives with sharper credentials, and suddenly your internal ranking trembles. I remember my sister's hissing jealousy when I got my dad a particularly good Christmas present. A Wembley Stadium DVD of his own football team, Barton Rovers. I had a friend called Bernie. He made a big deal that he'd gone to the Royal Academy of Arts. I had to do a job at the Royal Academy of Arts, and my plan was to take one of my paintings and pretend to be wheeling it out, pretend to get caught, and offer to go and put it back on the wall where I'd found it. But he didn't believe me. If wealth defines you, what happens when wealth changes? If family defines you, what happens when roles change? If skills define you, what happens when memory fades? Self seems conditional. Everything we attach identity to changes. Bank balances fluctuate. Houses decay. Institutions close. Bodies decay. If identity depends on unstable things, instability is built in. We hope lineage will carry us forward. A surname, a family line, a reputation. But each generation forgets past of the last. Sometimes it's a good thing. You know, the monk's steel alms bowl is smooth. It's metal. If dropped, it can stand the shock. It is carefully designed to maximize embarrassment if accidentally dropped in a public place. The bounce and the speed of the roll of a monk's alms bowl is almost impossible to estimate and to chase. It wobbles, it speeds in a huge arc, all at the same time, rolling around in a wide arc, almost deliberately, it seems, over towards the ladies' underwear stall. When this happened to me, as I chased around after it, it loudly rattled and rolled. The robes were usually at this point also sliding off the shoulder as well, not to help. This sight, in a medium-sized, crowded market, is bound to be imprinted on the minds of all who see it for life. The monk searching under the Islamic lady's underwear stall for his escaping rolling alms bowl. All components of identity, body, feelings, perceptions, mindful emotions, experience of consciousnesses, they all arise and pass. Titles arise and pass. Wealth arises and passes. Memory shifts. Projection changes. What we cling to as me is a process, not a fixed entity. When identity is tied to status, others become competitors. When tied to lineage, others become extensions of ourselves. When it's tied to wealth, others become comparisons. Attachment to identity subtly shapes behavior. Some tactics to try at home and out. When introducing yourself, experiment occasionally with describing what you care about rather than what you do. Instead of, I am a such and such, try, I am interested in. The shift moves identity from fixed label to dynamic engagement. Over time, this subtle language change reduces rigidity about role-based identity, what I do. And instead of asking, how will I be remembered, ask, how am I behaving now? Legacy anxiety projects forward. Presence returns attention to immediate conduct. The future story writes itself from present actions. Next, spend 5 minutes daily sitting without referencing past or future. Notice that identity weakens without past memory or future projection. This is not mystical, it's experiential. When the story-making pauses, just being remains. A reflection. Sit quietly and watch what the mind reaches for. When it wants to be and feel real. Does it reach for the bank balance, the titles, the familiar story of my life? Notice how quickly reassurance becomes identity. When reassurance flickers, the self flickers. Let the mind show you its favorite supports. Then ask gently, without argument, is support the same thing as self? Stay with the silence and explore it. Some people have bad luck in life. There was a man asked his phone, Siri, why am I still single? And it activated the front camera. It's your face. A man got hit by a bike every day. He was stuck in a vicious cycle. A priest asked a convicted murderer in the electric chair, do you have any last requests? Yes, replied the murderer. Can you please hold my hand? There's a Parnati Pata joke there. Many people invest in dreams of the perfect afterlife. The Buddha once described a man standing at a crossroads, carefully building a staircase, plank by plank, stone by stone, step by step. People asked him, what are you building this staircase for? Where's it going? He replied, to a magnificent palace. They asked him, that palace, where is it? North? South? Is it east or west? Is it, high up, low down, or? He says, I don't know. They said, oh, have you ever seen it? He said, no. They said, and yet you're building a staircase to reach it. Yeah. The Buddha uses this image to question beliefs about the permanently happy self after death. If you haven't seen it, known it, or even experienced a hint of it, what exactly are you building towards? We do this often. We construct mental staircases to imagine certainties, permanent happiness, guaranteed security, flawless futures. Before building the steps, it may be wise to ask, based on how we know life to actually be, is there really such a palace there? Imagine your role dissolving tonight. No badge, no income label, no social position. What is left in the morning? The unease is not practical alone, it's the fear of groundlessness. Identity wants a fixed center. Reflection tests that hope. Between memory and future planning, notice present awareness. Simple, immediate, not defined by resume or legacy. Reflect on how identity strategies steer behavior. When I define myself by achievement, I become competitive. When I define myself by prestige, I manage impressions. When I define myself by lineage, I become protective. Ask, what behaviors does my identity demand? And then ask, who carries the cost of that demand? No honesty, not theory be the answer. This happened in Ireland. I heard a man telling me once he'd learned to do the blessing the Christian way in Ireland. The blessing is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. He said, first time I learned to do the blessing was sadly when my uncle died, and he'd been buried in a kind of remote part of the Dublin mountains. It was a really funeral day. The wind was whipping down, the rain, and he was just 6 years old, just wandering around between the legs of the adults, the black shroud, the umbrellas, dripping rain. This hole in the ground, I didn't know what it was all about. And I'm watching the coffin being lowered into the ground. And I hear the priest say what I think is, in the name of the Father and the Son, and into the Holy Ghost. And that's how he continued blessing himself for a long time after. In the name of the Father, the Son, and into the Holy Ghost. Comparison constructs identity through hierarchy. Higher and lower create shape. Without a ladder, ranking collapses. Notice how the self spans in favorable company and contracts in impressive company. That expansion and contraction reveals dependency on the context outside ourselves. Insight removes the ladder. What remains is much steadier and much less reactive. Legacy is projected memory. We imagine how we will be remembered and attempt to secure continuity through future storytelling. A legacy depends entirely on retelling by others. Insight sees that striving to control the future stories is a very fragile strategy. Present conduct is real. Future remembrance is just speculation. We don't know what will happen. A guy was wandering through the Sahara desert, desperate for water, when he spotted something far off in the distance. With hope in his heart, he walked towards it, only to find an old man sitting at a table which was covered in neckties. The guy pleaded, "Please, I'm dying of thirst. Can I have some water?" The old man replied, "I don't have any water, How about a tie? This one would look great with your shirt. The guy snapped, I don't want a tie, you lunatic. I'm dying. I need water. The old man stayed calm. Okay, don't buy a tie, but I'll still help you. About 5 miles over that sand dune, my brother runs a restaurant. They'll give you all the water you want. The guy thanked him and stumbled away towards the sand dune. 3 hours later, the guy came crawling back, parched and exhausted. The old man said, what happened? Couldn't you find the restaurant? The guy rasps, I found it, but they wouldn't let me in without a tie. Here are some takeaway tactics to try at home and out. Tactical ways to put ideas into your day. Choose one possession tied strongly to identity. An award, a status object, a symbolic item. Place it out of sight for a week. Observe whether identity feels threatened. The experiment reveals attachments without forcing renunciation. Distance brings clarity. I remember there was one DVD disc of my most ultimate performance of music at a community arts festival. It was left in my attic. My dad threw it away. Actually, it saved me a job. I would have had to go all the way back to England, look at it, and then throw it away. Can't carry it around forever, can you? Next, list your current roles: parent, professional, mentor, student, son, daughter, father, mother. Now imagine losing one of those temporarily. Notice the emotional response. The aim is not pessimism, but preparation. Flexibility reduces shock when change arrives. When imposter thoughts arise, I don't belong, replace that with, this is a new role for me, rather than I don't belong. Growth feels unstable because identity is adjusting. Treat instability as transition, not fraudulence. Spend 5 minutes daily in direct sensory awareness. No past review, no future rehearsals. Notice that experience continues without identity narrating stuff. This trains familiarity with what it's like without stories. Think of a role you once defended strongly. Perhaps you no longer hold it. Notice that life continued. The fear beforehand was larger than the reality after. Reflection reveals that identity often overestimates its own fragility. Family stories shape identity quietly. You were always the responsible one. Notice how such sentences settle into self-definition. Reflection allows re-examining them. A story repeated is not necessarily a story required. We sometimes imagine we are things we are not. A guy went to a psychiatrist because he was having an identity crisis. He said, some days I feel like a teepee. You know, those tall things that Red Indians live in? On other days, I feel like a wigwam. I don't know which one is true. One day teepee, What, next day, wigwam, teepee, wigwam, teepee, wigwam, teepee, wigwam. Psychiatrist yells, so much stress, you're too tense. It's a joke, too tense. Trying to live in English lay life after renouncing money as a kind of undercover monk. It's not easy. I was staying with a friend in London. I took to my monk training and soon found a row of restaurants, an Indian, a Thai, and a Bengali. They could be Buddhists. I was asking for alms food. Remember, I wasn't touching money. I noticed also a canteen on another doorway across the other side of the alleyway. I pushed a door. I went inside to ask, but there was no one to be seen anywhere. I looked around. Inside also was a VIP dining suite. There was no one there either. A paper frame notice on the wall said this: the purpose, the reasons for the formation of the Metropolitan Police Force is to keep the Queen's peace and compassion and calm. I was in a police station. Oh no! My friends would never believe me. So, to prove it I foolishly borrowed the sign. It was only made out of plastic and paper, like cheap print. So, out I walked. A police car pulled me over in the car park. One thing and another, I was put in a jail cell. The chief of police came down to give me a hot tea, a hot pizza, and a photocopy of the sign. Next day, this incident was up there on the front page of the Camden News. The police station had thought I'd been sent by another police station, actually. Ask yourself, how much do you trust the people of the world? How much do you trust reality and society? Trust people? How deep is your love for them? Your faith in the common people? Would you trust falling upon them to support you? Even the police gave me food. They made merit. Notice how quickly a minor comment becomes a story. First, there is a contact, and then interpretation. Then memory searches for supporting evidence. And then projection anticipates future harm. What began as sound becomes a whole interpreted story. Reflection reveals all the layers. If you remove one layer, the whole structure weakens. I was always very keen to help people. If I ever got new ideas, tips, or know-how to improve people's lives. When I worked in England, somebody showed me how to clean the playing head on a tape cassette player using cotton wool ball and some lighter fluid or gas. I was amazed at the transformation in the sound quality. The music before suddenly sounded crystal clear. So imagine when I arrived in a tiny fishing village in the Philippines and heard their warbling, muffled music over the stereo. Proudly, I said, "Aha, watch this." Like I was about to perform a scientific miracle in front of them. Many villagers gathered round. As I got a cotton ball, children rushed over to see what was happening. People stopped cooking to go and see. A lighter fluid can was brought. Triumphantly, I dabbed it on the cotton wool. Just then, a voice came from the village boys saying, "Yes, we already know how to clean the head." I was immediately deflated and, like a failed magician, dabbed the magnetic head on. The music cassette went in, I pressed play. It sounded exactly the same. Nothing had changed at all. What an anti-climax. So much for me being a hero. The sense of security from finances is risky. The more you accumulate, when you die, you won't take nothing with you, but your karma. Clarity about purpose often widens when identity loosens up, when work is no longer used to secure self-worth. It can serve by contributing to the community instead. The bigger picture emerges not from amplifying your ego, but from reducing its noise. Real change begins when we see that identity strategies are defensive, not essential. The moment we recognize that titles and comparison are just protection, not core structure, behavior shifts. Transformation is less about acquiring new status and more about releasing unnecessary scaffolding. Fatigue alters perception. Hunger sharpens irritation. Poor sleep magnifies threats. Identity often feels unstable when the body is strained. The mind then constructs explanations. I'm failing. I'm inadequate. In reality, physiology is just influencing your interpretations. Recognizing this link helps you to remove those temporary states. Quiet reflection reveals how frequently thought describes identity. In stillness, one can observe memory arising, projection forming, and reactions building on top of it. Insight here is not mystical. Identity appears just through mental activity. When activity slows down, the structure becomes visible. Sometimes success is a great anti-climax. When I was 22, I went to Sydney, Australia. I worked very, very hard in the city as an illustrator, and soon was working for the national newspaper group. It was tough, and I needed time in nature to be with wildlife in the forest. I took a train from the city centre. Those days you could ride with one of the doors open and watch the country going by. Evening was falling. I hadn't planned where to go, just threw my few things in a sleeping bag. Soon, sun went down and the train was moving through villages and trees. I picked a random small station and got off. I wanted to head for the forest. I walked in the dark and found some trees. I curled up there and fell fast asleep. I woke up deep inside my sleeping bag to dawn light and the sound of birds. Then a strange sound came. I peeked out of my sleeping bag to see a golf ball. I was in a few trees that were in the middle of a huge golf course. Hadn't found nature at all. Some tips. So daily life. Set boundaries for work and life. Create clear boundaries between work hours and personal time to maintain a healthy balance. Tackle procrastination, identifying the underlying reasons for procrastination, and use techniques like 2-minute tasks to overcome them. Track progress. Use apps, journals, spreadsheets, and track your progress on goals. Reflect on successes, areas for improvement. Mindful breathing. Use mindful breathing techniques throughout the day to stay grounded and present during work. Time blocking. Allocate specific time slots in your day for focused work, relaxation, and reflection to maintain balance. Practice compassionate leadership. Approach leadership with empathy and a focus on uplifting others, creating an inclusive work environment. Continuous learning. Dedicate time each week to learning something new that aligns with your work or life goals. Celebrate small wins. Recognize and celebrate incremental achievements along the way to keep motivation high. Critical reflection. We assume accumulation equals safety, that accreditation equals worth, legacy equals permanence. But who decided this? Are these truths or inherited scripts? If titles and possessions vanished, what would remain? Question the equation between status and self. There comes a moment when success fails to silence doubts, that disappointment can liberate. If achievement cannot secure identity, perhaps steadiness lies elsewhere. Growth begins when proving yourself feels less urgent than understanding yourself. I mean, money. Do you really own anything at all? Everything is impermanent. A man was at the golf club bar having a drink. A phone rang. Yes? Where are you? I'm at the golf club. How did it go? Wonderful. I had a great round. Well, you know that BMW Sportster I've been talking about? They have one down at the showroom. I'm so excited to go and see it. Oh, he said. Go on then. You've been wanting that. Get yourself. Go on, you deserve it. Go ahead, buy it. See you later. Bye. Then he turned to the bar, holding up the phone. Hello, whose phone is this, please? The Goose and the Golden Egg. There was once a countryman who possessed the most beautiful goose you can imagine. For every day he visited the nest, the goose had laid a beautiful, glittering, golden egg. The countryman took the eggs to market, soon began to get rich. But it was not long before he grew impatient with the goose, because she gave him only a single one golden egg a day. He was not getting rich fast enough. Then one day, after he'd been counting his money, the idea came to him, I could get all the golden eggs at once by killing the goose and cutting it open, getting them all out, instead of waiting. But when the deed was done, not a single golden egg did he find, and his precious goose was dead. The moral is, those who have plenty want more, and so lose all they have. Bitcoin, yeah. There comes a moment when success fails to silence doubt, but disappointment can liberate. If achievement cannot secure identity, perhaps steadiness lies elsewhere. Growth begins when proving yourself feels less urgent than understanding yourself. Are your choices guided by fear of irrelevance or by genuine values? When actions protect an image, anxiety grows. When actions align with integrity and usefulness, Comparison starts to soften. Identity shifts from projection to practice. A man said to me, I don't mean to brag or anything, but I have my own private jet. Yeah. But the rest of the jacuzzi belongs to my mum. He said, money, if it doesn't bring you happiness, well, at least help you be miserable in comfort. And banks, you know what a bank is? A bank is a place that will lend you money if you can prove that you don't need it. He'd been to see that tailor in Penang, told him, there's a very easy way to return from a casino with a small fortune. Go there with a large fortune. Personally, I'm so poor, I can't even pay attention. Some creative problem-solving tips. Rigid identity limits innovation. When we stop defending past credentials or accumulated expertise, new solutions appear. Creativity expands when memory informs action, but does not imprison possibility. Striving for security can become self-criticism. Self-compassion recognizes that identity is constructed from memory and projection, not a fixed essence. Progress becomes sustainable when we treat ourselves as learners, not imposters under surveillance. You can lose your money and your identity, all your papers. I did. I once spent a month drawing portraits on Greek islands. The currency was thin paper notes. I had stacks of them in my waist pouch. I wanted to fly to Turkey to see the Blue Mosque in Istanbul. I bought a ticket to fly to an island just off the coast of Turkey and travel on from there. I bought it and waited for my flight in the airport. I fell fast asleep. Suddenly waking up, I saw it was only 15 minutes to take off. I raced to the counter, flapping my ticket. The man said, no, you're in the wrong airport. Get a taxi, you might just make it. I raced to the door for a taxi. Glancing behind me, I saw a long trail of paper money right the way across the floor of the airport. It had all fallen out. The taxi door was open. I left the cash and we screeched away. I just made it. I would draw more portraits, never mind. I did it once. But as it happened, the island was full of poor, old, retired men. No one wanted their portrait drawn at all. I was sent money by insurance. I bought a bright orange ferry ticket. They kept your passport to be returned on board the boat. I wandered up the plank of the huge white cruise ship. It set off. They came to me, orange ticket. Oh, green ticket, they said. No, that's that little ferry just over there. I was going the wrong way, back where I'd come from, back to a Greek city, with no passport and almost no money. So it can help when you've got a lot on. Break large projects into smaller, more manageable tasks to reduce the overwhelm and boost your productivity. Set boundaries for work and life. Create clear boundaries between work hours and personal time to maintain healthy balance. Find someone to check in with regularly, an accountability partner about your progress towards your goals. And prioritize daily. Identify the most important tasks each day Focus your energy on those first before moving to less critical ones. On the spiritual path, financial security, accreditation, and legacy gradually reveal themselves as just provisional identities, temporary identities. Memory builds a story, projection defends it. Practice exposes how comparing and fear of irrelevance disturb our peace more than circumstances themselves. Viewed neutrally, identity consists of accumulated experiences, qualifications, social feedback, interpreted through memory. A projected thought is an expectation. Financial shifts, comparison, status, changes our events. The instability arises not from facts, but from attachment to interpretation. George Bernard Shaw said, "Life is a sort of splendid torch before handing it on to future generations." But your children will probably say, "No thanks, I've already got one on my phone." William Shakespeare said, "There is no legacy so rich as honesty." After all, as my uncle said, we will be known forever by the tracks we leave, as he retired from being a plastic surgeon. Tracing back to the Han Dynasty poetry, this proverb encourages gratitude and ethical awareness. When drinking water, think of its source. Yin shui, si yuan. Did I say that right? Emphasizing one should acknowledge supports and foundation sources rather than taking benefits for granted. Remember the origin of the things you benefited from. Be grateful, mindful, and responsible. Recognize that wealth is built on effort, opportunity, and sometimes familial supports, societal supports. I once asked my grandfather how he lived so long. He smiled and said, "I sprinkle a little gunpowder on my cereal every morning." I always thought that was a bit weird, but he did live a long life, left a great legacy, thriving career, loving wife, 7 children, 16 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, and a massive hole in the crematorium wall. Life and work are like a journey with obstacles, milestones, and lessons along the way. Life and work are like pieces of a puzzle where each part needs to fit together to complete the whole picture. Growth, work, and purpose are like tending to a garden, requiring care, patience, and nourishment. Life and work are like a dance with movement, rhythm, and balance that come with practice and time. Legacy is less about monuments and more about influence. Each action, conversation, and decision leaves subtle traces in peoples and systems. Impact grows through consistency, not spectacle. Work becomes meaningful when measured by contribution rather than by applause. When work connects to something larger than personal gain, energy stabilizes. Purpose outlasts moods and circumstances. It transforms effort into commitment. Even setbacks feel like instructions rather than defeating when aligned with deeper intention and values. Security is not something you can find in a one-size-fits-all. It's how you relate to change, money, titles, reputation, and legacy that will have their place. But they cannot carry the weight of identity alone. Comparison can refine you. Accreditation can train you. And even imposter syndrome can stretch you. Let your work express contribution rather than fear. Build, earn, learn, but don't confuse the scaffolding with the self. Financial security. That's just future you getting a care package. Accumulation means you've been busy building tools. Legacy shows you want to leave good footprints. Comparison can be friendly competition with your own potential. Accreditation proves you stuck with something. Imposter syndrome means you're stretching. Fear of irrelevance. You care about contributing. And identity as memory plus projection, that's your mind running a creative trailer for the next chapter. So, let's get ready and have a reflection on some of those issues. Give your brains a rest, refresh. Oh, and by the way, yeah, a lot of the pictures and images in here came from this artist, Hiroshi Yoshida. His work has been featured during this talk. So a lot of the woodblock Japanese mountain, clouds, temples images are from him. So it's just to credit him. So if you like to sit comfortably, bring your attention maybe to your breathing. So we spent some time together exploring this strange thing we call identity. Not merely our name, not merely our occupation, but all the quiet stories we carry about who we think we are. Perhaps now, we can put all these stories down, if only for a little while. So please make yourself comfortable and allow the body to settle naturally. Not stiff, not collapsed, just simply balanced, hands resting easily. If it feels comfortable, allow the eyes to close. Feel the simple fact of sitting here. Nothing more. The weight of the body, the contact with the chair, the feet upon the floor, hands resting quietly. Already notice something beautiful. The chair supports you without asking who you are. The floor doesn't care what qualifications you have. The breath doesn't check your bank account. Life is already holding you. Become aware of breathing. No special breathing. No deep breathing, just this breath. Breathing in, knowing you're breathing in. Breathing out, knowing you're breathing out. Again and again. Notice how breathing requires no identity. There is simply breathing. As the body settles, allow the face to soften. The forehead, the eyes, the jaw, your shoulders, your chest, your stomach, your hands, your legs. Each out-breath, letting go a little more. Now simply listen. Perhaps sounds nearby. Perhaps sounds further away. A bird, a fan, a sniff, a cough, traffic. All sounds appear, linger, and disappear. None of them asks, who is listening? There is simply hearing. Now become aware of thoughts. Perhaps plans. Perhaps memories. Perhaps little conversations continuing inside the mind. Don't stop them. Don't follow them. Simply notice thinking. How fascinating. The mind is always telling stories. Sometimes stories about yesterday. Sometimes stories about tomorrow. Sometimes stories about ourselves. Without those stories, what remains? Just notice. Earlier we reflected that identity is often built from memory and projection. Memory telling us who we've been, projection telling us who we must become. Notice how little time the mind spends simply reflecting, resting here. Very gently allow yesterday to drift away. No successes, no failures, no regrets, no achievements. Just for now, let yesterday rest. Now allow tomorrow to drift away. No plans, no worries, no expectations, no rehearsals. Tomorrow can wait. Without yesterday, without tomorrow, what remains? Simply this breath, this body, this knowing. Notice that awareness itself does not grow older. Thoughts change, the body changes, emotions change, opinions change. Awareness simply knows whatever is present. Imagine that you are sitting beside a quiet lake. The surface of the lake reflects the sky. Occasionally a leaf falls, ripples appear, then gradually the surface becomes still again. Thoughts are like those leaves. Each one creates a ripple. But the water doesn't need to chase them, and nor does it hold on to those leaves. Perhaps a thought appears, I am successful. Notice it. Then it passes. Another thought, I'm just not good enough. Notice that too. It also passes. Another, I should be different. Passing. Another, I've always been like this. It's just passing too. How curious every description appears inside awareness. None of them is awareness itself. Bring to mind one label you've carried for many years. Perhaps, I'm shy, or I'm pretty clever, or I'm difficult, or I'm anxious, or I'm independent, I'm a parent, I'm retired, I'm successful, whatever arises naturally. Hold that label gently in your hands, as though it were written on a small card. Look at it kindly, not rejecting it, not clinging to it, simply seeing it. And then quietly ask, is this the whole of me? Or is it simply one description among many? Imagine placing that card beside you. You haven't destroyed it. You haven't denied it. You've simply stopped carrying it for a while. Now notice another label appearing, perhaps one someone else gave you. Perhaps as a child, perhaps at school, perhaps at work, perhaps within your family. The responsible one, the difficult one, the quiet one, the clever one, the disappointment, the successful one. Notice how easily other people's words can become our own identity. Again, hold that label gently. Thank it for trying to explain life, then place it beside the first. Breathing in, you're lighter. Breathing out, you're lighter still. One by one, allow the labels to rest. Your occupation is there. Your age is there. Your nationality is there. Achievements are there. Failures are there. Praise is there. Blame is there. Successes are there. Disappointments are there. Even your own name or names are there. Just for these few moments. Without reaching for any description, simply experience being alive. Nothing missing, nothing added, just this living experience. Rest quietly in that simplicity, breathing gently, aware, without needing to become anyone at all. Just remain there for just a few breaths. Simple, aware, nothing to defend, nothing to become. Notice something subtle. Very gently, the mind begins to reach for itself again. Perhaps a memory appears, a conversation, a photograph, a success, a disappointment. Almost immediately, a story begins to form. I. Notice how quickly the mind builds a person out of passing thoughts. You don't need to stop this happening. Simply observe it. The storyteller is simply doing what storytellers do. Imagine standing in a wide open sky. Clouds drift overhead. Some are bright, some are dark, some are large, some are hardly noticeable. The sky never argues with the clouds, just allows them to come, allows them to go. Awareness is like that sky. Thoughts of success, passing clouds. Thoughts of failure, passing clouds. Praise is a cloud. Blame, another cloud. Hopes, fears, confidence, self-doubt, all clouds, none remain. Earlier we reflected on comparison. Notice how comparison creates a self. Someone's richer, someone's poorer, someone's wiser, and someone's younger. Someone's more successful, someone's less successful. Without comparison, what happens to the one doing the comparing? Just rest quietly with that question. Maybe bring to mind someone who you admire. And notice what happens inside the mind. Then bring to mind someone who struggles greatly. Again, notice what happens. Watch carefully. Mind is always trying to discover who it is by standing next to someone else. Allow both people to fade away, neither above you, neither below you, just fellow travelers, each carrying their own joys, fears, hopes and suffering. And feel how much lighter the heart becomes when comparison begins to loosen. Bring to mind one mistake you have carried for many years. Not the greatest, just one that still whispers, "That is who I am." Hold it gently and notice how memory tries to become identity. And ask yourself, was that an action? Or was it my entire being? The Buddha never asked us to become our mistakes. He asked us to understand them, to learn, to let them go. Imagine placing that memory into the stream, watching it float away. Not erased or denied, just no longer carried. Very quietly bring awareness to this body, the changing body. Once it was an infant. Once it was a child. Once young, now older. Always changing. Cells appearing, cells disappearing. Hair changing, skin changing, strength changing. And yet, life continues to flow. Notice feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, each arising, each passing. Notice sounds appearing and disappearing. Notice thoughts appearing and disappearing. Emotions. Everything moving and everything flowing. Nothing fixed, nothing frozen. Perhaps this is why the Buddha invited us to loosen our grip. Not because life is empty of meaning, but because life is full of movement. The tighter we grasp, the more friction we create. The gentler we hold, the more freely life flows. Silently repeat within yourself, may I become less attached to my stories. May I meet change with wisdom. May I remember that I am more than my successes, more than my failures, more than my reputation. May I live with kindness rather than self-defense. May I discover the freedom that comes from letting go. Allow those wishes to spread throughout this room. Every person here has a story. Every person is worried about how they appear. Every person has carried labels. Every person has known the wish to be accepted. May we all find ease. May we all discover quieter confidence. May we all know that you need not carry every story forever. And widen your awareness to your family, your friends. To those with whom you find difficulty. People whose identities have become prisons. People who are frightened of becoming older. People who feel they have failed. People trying desperately to prove themselves. May they all find peace. May we all discover our own goodness beneath every label. Let your heart expand to embrace all living beings, those beginning life, those nearing death, those celebrated, those forgotten, those praised, those criticized, those confident, those uncertain. May all beings be free from unnecessary suffering. May all beings discover the peace that does not depend upon comparison. May all beings learn to hold themselves gently. Return once more to the breathing. Breathing in, aware. Breathing out at peace. Again and again. Become aware once more of your body sitting here. Feel the weight of your hands, your feet, the sounds within this room. Take 3 slow, gentle breaths, breathing in, breathing out. Again, once more. When you're ready, begin to move your fingers, toes. Very gently allow the eyes to open. As you sit today, don't try to become a different person. Simply become less burdened by the need to keep proving. To keep proving who that person is. Walk gently, speak kindly, live honestly, and allow your life to become less about protecting an identity, more about expressing wisdom, compassion, and peace. May you all be well. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So there's all kinds of things in there. It's on identity, comparison, status, wealth, legacy, fragile ways we construct self. During meditation, what thoughts or memories does the mind reach for in order to feel important, secure, or a real somebody? Something to think on. How does comparison disturb inner peace and contentment in your daily life? And when praise or criticism appears, how long does the mind continue building stories around it? It can go on for months, years, a lifetime. So, if anyone would like to share some reflections, we had the whole art therapy section before as well. So anything that came out of that or from this particular talk, very welcome to a few things there. In the name of the Father and the Son and into the Holy Ghost. The staircase to heaven, the permanent, eternally beautiful heaven. Losing all your money and your passports. Lots of different things, lots of different reflections on all sorts of different adventures that we come across. And I'd like to share something from all this that we've been sitting within. And also there was all the things from the art therapy, we had a big exploration. Please.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.
Just that so much the powerful message was being sent on this video. Also during the guided meditation here. My perspective here is, during our normal days of meditation, should we be practicing on the guided meditation in a way what you input? Because your guided meditation, that what you share to us, there's a lot of positive impact inside, positive side-minded messages was being sent in. So, if we want to do it ourselves on this subliminal message, what I'm trying to say, because our meditation is focusing on our mind and also focusing on our breathing, and then the background, what you share with us is a lot of subliminal message. That's my perspective of message. But if for us to improve on this, where can we download all these, positive messages are being put into us if I do the meditation myself?
I think retreats like this or workshops like this are like being up on a high mountain and you can see many of your meditations to come, and many of your meditations, what you can look at where you've been, the way you've been looking, the way you've been living, your attitudes and values, and then you can readjust. So it's like you can set intentions for a whole year in a moment like this. You might realize that, I've been building legacy. I've been doing all this monuments and marble and my son and my house, and I haven't realized I've really been building on that, for example, or something else. I've been working towards this whole certificate. I've been climbing up. I'm like, hold on, what am I doing that for? I can stop doing that actually. Why did I do all that? So moments like this, you can adjust your values, because these are very big questions that they can then affect. You can sort of adjust the ship of your life, which way it's going, and that can affect hundreds of meditations. So it's like a global overview. If you realize, I've been building a self. I was going to get a doctor. I was going to have a certificate on my wall. And that you realize suddenly, I've been working on an ego trip, and I've got to change 180 degrees. I'm really, I'm not working at work. I'm not going in the right direction, and it's causing me pain. So those can be breakthrough moments where you suddenly go, "Whoa! I never really looked at it like that before." So after that, you can carry on meditating the same practice, but it can be aimed in a different aim, like the sankappa, the right aim. So this is a lot about views and aim. this particular part that we just covered in there, and values. I mean, you can reassess your values, and you can put down a lot of things. You can set an intention and just think, wow, what was I doing? I don't need to do that. Actually, that all your aims and intentions, they might be 5-year intentions, are all just built on ideas. You can pull them apart and go, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead, or I'm just going to let go of it and move in a different way. People might be, people were investing. Like there was a woman who went into hairdressers in Suchi, and she ended up sort of donating $250,000 or something, just because she suddenly realized she was wasting her money on many, many things, buying houses or buying cars they didn't need, and reassessed her values. And it just was a life shift. So you can set a big intention, and then the small intentions can follow along from that. So when you do a big check-in like we're doing now, 2 whole days, then you can go quite deep to set up your intention and check where is my life going, and is it in the right direction, and reevaluate some habits, reevaluate some lifestyle choices. And that can make a big difference. And then after that, things follow along. After that, things tend to follow along. But you can set a big intention during this time, or like the art thera and some of the reflections. Here, you might have a realization and go, wow, that's me. Or, no, that's me. Just been talking about non-self. But, this is that's what that sounds like what I've been doing. I'm going to shift that. So, I can't say for you what that personally will be, but you can. And then, so once you set your life, your life path like that, then I used to use an analogy of standing on a motorway bridge, and you can see how many cars can you see. So each one of those is a day's meditation. But when you're looking from the side of the motorway, they all look different. They're all different. Another one, there's another one. So it's like dizzying. But when you're up on the motorway looking down from a high place, you see them all in a row, and you can see them all without even moving your eyes. You can see it very clearly, very calmly up ahead. So you can set your intention. Like, I'm going to go to Vietnam, I'm going to go to China, I might go to Taiwan, but it'll all be much with the same view. I know that they'll all be impermanent, but I'll always be sort of compassionate, I'll always be kind, I'll always be available. I'll always be moving with this kind of breathing. Whatever happens, I'll meet thousands of things, come and go, building, shiny, big, big, small, poor, rich, fancy, not fancy, but hey, the main thing is keeping that view, keeping the Dharma view, and then everything will fall into place. I know I'll lose things, I know I'll find things, I know good things will happen, or unpleasant things will happen, pleasant things will happen. It's all impermanent, and I'm not going to attach to any of it, and I'm not looking for a magic fix. So once you've got the priorities, the big priorities in place, the other ones fall into place, or just prioritizing meditation, prioritizing mindfulness, prioritizing daily time. It doesn't have to be by the clock, otherwise that means you're prioritizing the clock too much. Sometimes it's like listening and, it's the full moon, I'm going to go to the temple, or I should go and sit up by those trees, I should spend more time with my family, I'm going to walk with my kids, whatever it is. So you might just listen more. You don't necessarily have to do a clockwork thing. It can be. Or joining a group that meets on a certain day can create a rhythm, those things. But it's a really good question, though, I think, for everyone. Everyone would have those kind of thoughts too. Has anyone else been thinking those kind of thoughts? It's like, how am I going to do this in daily life? Should I sit at home with my legs crossed, or does it mean I'll drive differently? Does it mean, I'll talk to my partner differently? how am I going to put this into practice? How am I going to do that? I thought it was good when it was talking about how you introduce yourself, rather than I am this and I've got this and I'm one of those, more than you express what your interests are. It's a slightly different shift, but it's a big thing. It's a big difference, rather than saying I'm a such and such. I'm a hierarchy. I'm a status this, status this. It's just no. I'm just interested in these things. This is what I value. Makes a big difference. State your values, rather than a big kind of, this is my job, and it's a kind of high job or something like that. We often get that with monks, They come up to you, they look down and go, Vasa? How many Vasas are you? And I go like, none, I'm a Samanera. I can be a Samanera in 35 years and I'll still have no Vasas.
Bhante,
Yes, please.
I think I will ask these questions for my whole life. So after watching this video, I still want to ask these questions. So what is the meaning of life?
It's a film by Monty Python. No, Monty Python have a movie called The Meaning of Life. Whether life actually has a meaning in it, just has a meaning in it, that's another question. Whether you make meaning, or whether there are many people who have created and found and lived lives which have meaning. They definitely have. And there are some people who have lived life without any meaning. I keep saying someone on my phone, there are these guys with bare feet and they climb up like Burj Khalifa or these sort of glass buildings. And they climb up them, and they're clinging on to tiny little bits of metal. It's like, what's the meaning? There's no meaning in doing that, is there? But there are some people who are rescuing people in earthquake zones, or there are people who are feeding poor people. So meaning depends a lot on values. The value, there are some things that are definitely very, very valuable. Either that they save other people's lives, so medical practitioners who discover things like penicillin, or scientific discoveries, or psychological benefits for great amounts of people, taking people out of the dark, out of darkness of superstition, or there are people who've done terrible things, like they murder, they've genocide. When they murder all the intellectuals, all the educators, then you have this great darkness that happens afterwards, where there's a big confusion, like happened in Cambodia or Haiti or places like that, or Germany. So meaningfulness, like when you see the scale of values that the Buddha gave, like dana, to give, to learn the perfection of giving, like what do you give? Some things are not very meaningful to give, they're not very welcome, but some things are life-saving, or they are really beneficial, like you give people tools that they can then use. In education, like that, for example, you teach people how to defend themselves, how to provide for themselves, how to provide for a loving family, and how to provide for a community, or rescuing people who are in desperate need, drowning. So there are things that, there are helicopter rescue teams, or people who learn to rescue drowning people, like lifeguards. Or there are people who are rescuing people who are in emotional distress, like psychotherapists and counselors, or people who work in an accident and emergency units, or the police, or prison, good judges who protect society against dangerous, malicious people. System designers, or people who design cities, and for thousands and thousands of people for the future. Civil planning or engineering feats, or put satellites so that we can all have the internet. So there are a great number of things, and then for yourself, you have to sort of evaluate where you can fit in, because there's all this, there's all this wealth of valuable things happening all over the world. You can look in China where they're planting how many billions of trees? How many, right? So some ridiculous, crazy number. I thought Sadhguru was good because he'd planted 1 million. And then I went to Auroville in Tamil Nadu and they said, no, we planted 3.5 million. Now look in China, they're planting like billions. And they've got like drone robots going, Vika. They're going to be, repopulating the planet of trees. It's amazingly good. And that whole movement towards clean energy, hopefully we'll do it in time to save the planet for the future generations. And then it's the whole quality of life. So there are so many good things, where if you look in the history, there were terrible things. There were terrible plagues. There were terrible living conditions. Look at London in the 1600s. It was a disgusting swamp, and there was all wood, and then it all burnt down, like Kuala Lumpur. They had a huge fire. Same kind of thing. So if you can be involved and feel that you're involved in a progression of the movement from pain and struggle towards relief and a pleasant, not only just a pleasurable life, that would also be meaningless, to just have a life based on pleasure, because pleasure is temporary, it just comes and goes. That you can find deeper purpose. So that is not, there is not the meaning, like there's not just one meaning, because it would be different for every different person. One person meaning is seeing that their children grow and have healthy, and are psychologically and emotionally healthy or well educated. They can provide for the community at large. So there isn't one meaning. The Buddha's nirvana is not also, I wouldn't say that's a one meaning. It has a specific aim, and that is to not get reborn again, because he saw that actually there is a constantly repeating process going on that has a kind of endlessness in it. And that meaning can come from the purification process, so that you're not just feeding cravings, and you're not feeding and harboring hatred. And the majority of the problems on the living planet come from ego and pride and all the other main corruptions, jealousies and so on. That if then the purification process towards nirvana removes all of those. So you have whole kingdoms without war, and you have good leaders, and you have wise people, you have great compassion, and you have peace and fairness amongst the people. Then there's a great unique form of happiness that is with the people. And if you can be part of that process, that's what the Buddha was involved in doing to this day. Country like Thailand, they've got 3.5 million monastics. Myanmar as well. Again, in spite of so many corrupt problems in the world, so much aggression and war. So that's been 2,500 years. So that was starting from one person sitting under a tree. Imagine Prince Charles, King Charles, sat under a tree. And then from what he started to say, 2,500 years later on, you'd have millions of people in foreign countries far away, all meditating and developing, reading those quotes and words and stuff. So how do you get anywhere near that? So you can find who's been meaningful, and then you can echo and you can pass on their examples. That's the aim of the Theravada anyway. There are people like Master Cheng Yen who've seen meaninglessness. Like there was a lady who was an Aboriginal mountain person who was bleeding in a hospital and wasn't being admitted because she didn't have money. And she said, that's It's not any meaningless, it's wrong that there's a meaningless system that acts like that. So I'm going to create a meaningful system. And you can see the virtue. So virtue really is like a fruit tree that gives and keeps giving and has, many ways to keep giving and giving and giving and giving and giving. So if you can set up systems, that's like the National Health Service that I was talking about in the UK, that's being set up and gives and gives and gives and gives and gives. But that's not the solution. Even if you have very healthy people, then you have like a healthy army, you can have healthy thieves, you can have sort of all sorts of things. So there are relatively pure and impure systems all over the world. Depends, you have to find out where you're going to be able to be effective with your stage of development and with your skills and assets and resources. That you imagine that's your limit. Actually, you can keep expanding that as well by joining up with other people. What do you think is a meaningful direction, for example?
What's the meaning? Or what's the meaning? To live without regret.
Yeah, to live without regret.
So, no matter, I'm sure I won't get attain Arahant for this life. So, even though every life I rebirth, I hope every rebirth is meaningful.
What are examples of regretful actions and activities that people, not necessarily yourself, it's not a confessional, but what kind of things do you think that people tend to regret later when they look back?
Okay, that's too deep. Being regret meaning that if you can achieve, but you didn't put effort to do it.
Go on.
So that's where like you will think that why that time I didn't grab the opportunity and the opportunity slips away. Why that time I didn't try harder? Although this is a kind of attachment.
True.
Yeah, there's a kind of this is a kind of attachment. So probably I haven't fully liberated. Yeah. So that's why I still have the kind of attachment. Why I didn't try harder. So for me, I feel regret, yes. And also I didn't experience many things, so I'm very cling of this small.
Oh, that can be dukkha. I mean, there's not getting what you want.
Yeah.
That's not quite the same thing. Because I can regret, like if you just think of all the places you haven't traveled to, once you start doing that, you've got regret. Like just not getting what you want, you can be endlessly caught in regret. I wish I'd been a football player. I wish I'd been, I wish I'd tasted this. I wish I'd seen that. I wish I'd heard this. I wish I'd learned to play piano. I wish I'd learned another language. Or you can go on forever with wishes. So that's one of the reasons that wishes are somewhat toxic. The person who came, the Deva who came, or Brahma came down to the Buddha and said, I'm as equal to you. And the Buddha said, how come? And he said, I've manifested everything I wanted. I wanted to manifest a castle, I wanted to manifest pleasure gardens, I wanted to manifest so many things. He went on all this list and he goes, therefore, I'm equal to you. And the Buddha said, no. He said, how come? He said, no wishes makes you a Buddha. Not just getting what you want or manifesting what you want. There's a huge difference. Having no wishes. So the Buddha said that wishes bind the earth. If you look at all the traffic jams and you knocked on the window and said, "What are you doing in the traffic?" You go, I'm going to get, I wish to get. So knock on the next one and say, "I want to get home." Like, everyone has a wish, so they're all like being pulled here and there. They're not in the present moment. They're not peaceful. They're all separated. They're all ordering something on Shopee. Everyone has desires. And he said the whole world is like this. They're either with things that they don't want, pushing away, or they're like grabbing things they haven't got. I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more. So that's the difference between a Buddha and just, because regrets can come to us from desire. And the more that we can reduce desire, we'll have less regrets. And actually a life with almost no regrets will have great meaning. You'll actually be able to see much more meaningful. That's a characteristic of all of the toxic mind states. They create a sort of meaningless, samsara is like a meaningless void. It's like an empty vacuum. You can keep throwing more in and it doesn't satisfy. So you could have 10 degrees and they might not satisfy. You might just want 11. You might have a mountain and you say, I need 3.
I further elaborate, meaning that you should take action. Like, if you take action, we didn't get, at least we satisfied. If not, if like you didn't do anything, then you didn't get the things you want. It's different. It's like once you take action and without taking action,
Yeah, there's a phrase someone said the other day. What was the topic? It's take 1 step back, 2 steps forward. So it's like, consider, do you really need to do this thing? And then take action, rather than be caught like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So it's, yes, take action, but consider it first. Don't just automatically keep taking actions and reactions. Prudence means to sort of consider first the different actions, rather than just keeping acting, in order to appear decisive or to be constantly acting. Sometimes it's much better to not act and take a pause and then reflect. That's the action of the prudent mindfulness. Sometimes it's good not to act. And sometimes something that you seem to be regretful leads to a much bigger, better thing anyway. Sometimes I've had to reflect, like working for that newspaper in Sydney, they offered me residency. So nowadays I actually move around quite a lot. But they had offered me like to be permanent resident in Australia. When I told my dad, he was like, "No." He was like that a lot. "You're a failure. Why didn't you do it?" Drama. But I said, no. If I had accepted residency, I never would have come to Asia, and I never would have got ordained. I never would have found the whole Vipassana thing. Even I was owed a lot of money by someone for some children's books, like $20,000, and he ran away with the money. I was like, what are we going to do? That crisis brought me to the Vipassana Center, and that got me to become a teacher and then ordained. So he was doing me a favor. So strangely enough, some things that appear to be negative, actually they're not negative. But your grasping mind is like, give me the money, so because I can do that. And actually, you don't get the money, but actually, what happens can be much more beneficial for you. Sometimes this happens, so you can always turn things to an advantage, even if they appear to be negative. Like that nephew of the Buddha, he was going to get married, and the Buddha said, "Come and carry my bowl a little bit more." And he went all over the hill and round the corner and slept the night, and then all the way. And then afterwards he said, "Is she really that amazing?" He's going, "I'm going to go married. I'm supposed to be there." He said, "Well, does she look more like these angels I'm going to show you?" No, she doesn't look like that. They're really amazing. And he goes, "Does she look more like the monkey who just got caught in the scorched monkey?" Well, she's a bit more like she's got a hairy back, I must admit, she's an Indian, so she's got hairy arms and a hairy back. So he didn't get what he wanted, but it actually wasn't a bad thing, because he went on and became an arahant, actually. All the monks mocked him because he was chasing after the angels. And then one day he said, "I don't need the angels anymore." So the desires are worn off. Talking of desire, we should have a cup of tea. It's tea time, isn't it? Yeah.
Tea time.
You are freed from your bondage of listening to me yapping on. So go and have a drink of tea. I'm just watching the time. And then let's come back in about half an hour. Are you good for that? Are you happy? Are you comfortable? Yeah, good. All right. Do you need longer for your tea break? Out in the sun and stretch your legs and everything? Half an hour do? Okay. All right then. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing this time together. Thank you so much for your questions. Very good. Thank you. Keep going.
Okay, sure.
Keep rolling them in. Okay. I'll do a quick blessing before we end then. And then you go. Bhavatu sapa mangalang rakantu sapa devata sabba buddhanupavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sapa mangalang rakantu sapa devata sabba dhammanupavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sapa mangalang rakantu sapa devata sapa sanganu bhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.